read 116 books in 2024, and today we're going to be talking about every single one of those books. That was actually insane. I love women. What? The start of what I didn't know would be my favorite thing on this planet. Yeah, bro's an animal, literally. I love it, I love it, I love it. Oh my god. Yep, I can't believe how many small town romances I read this year. I think I have a problem. I have spent the last year documenting my reading journey on YouTube, and I plan on doing that for hopefully years to come. So if you're interested, you can subscribe and stick around. This is gonna be a rapid review because we have a lot of books to get through. Getting right into it, the first book I read was Throne of Glass, and this was actually a reread. I reread the whole series, starting with Throne of Glass. This series is probably my favorite thing to ever exist. We are following a female assassin who is thrown into this competition to be the king's, basically, unaliver. I gave it 4 stars. The start of what I didn't know would be my favorite thing on this planet. Crown of Midnight, the continuation of my favorite thing on this planet, 6 stars. The Assassin's Blade, 5 novellas put into one. I read this one third. You can read it first or third. I don't really have a strong opinion about it. I read it third. I read it third again in my reread. Bawled my eyes out. 5 stars. Heir of Fire, technically third book in the series. I read it 4th. This world is a lot bigger than we thought it was. Ooh. Queen of Shadows, I love women. Specifically Selena. I love her. She is so cool. Empire of Storms. I didn't know my heart could be broken this bad. Tower of Dawn. This gets so much hate for no reason. I had so much fun reading this book. You can buddy read these. I didn't do that, and I was okay with it, and I feel like that made me enjoy this read more. Our tandem read, that's what it's called. 5 stars. I love this book right here. Kingdom of Ash. Holy, like, 1,000 pages. It could be more, and I would read it. 5 stars. 6 stars? Favorite series to ever exist. This was a reread, so I was just even more in love with it the first time I read it. I thought the first few books were a little slow, but I was interested, so I kept reading, and boy was that the best decision I ever made in my entire life so far. Continuing our Sarah J Maas grind. Crescent City. I didn't put these in my top of the year. I kind of forgot that I read them this year, but urban fantasy, intense, 800 pages. It's like following a detective around in this crazy world where you have no idea what's going on, but it was a lot of fun. The best ending to a book I have ever read, and the most excited a book has made me for the next release. My most disappointing read of the year. I hyped it up way too much in my head because of how this book ended. I was sad. I gave it 4 stars when I read it. I would probably honestly give it that because I love these characters and it was a lot of fun, but it did not make my top reads of the year because it was so disappointing. Sad days. A Divine Rivals reread. I freaking love this book so much. 5 stars. The cutest couple, the sweetest love letters, and just the most fun world set in what feels like an industrial revolution. This book made me so happy. I loved it so much. Ruthless Vows, the completion of the duology with Divine Rivals. I love this book. Gave it 5 stars as well. I gave Divine Rivals 5 stars the first time I read it and the second time. I freaking love these characters. I thought it was so fun. It was different than the first one. The world expanded. My heart broke. My heart got reformed. Loved it. Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood does YA, and she does it good. I love this book. I had a lot of fun. It was a little too now, like there was TikTok mentioned and other things mentioned, but whatever. 2 insanely talented chess players compete. Next, I read The Love Wager, which is a adult contemporary romance by Lynn Painter. It was so cute. Do I remember anything that happened? Not really. It had classic Lynn Painter banter and chemistry, and it was a good time when I read it. I gave it 3 stars. I then read Longitude by Deva Sobel. Basically, it just dives into the history of longitude and how sailing was super complicated because they didn't know the lines on the earth. Crazy back then, with no technology, with nothing, but they somehow managed to sail. It was interesting. None of This Is True. My first thriller mystery of the year, and I had so much fun reading it. It's kind of in a documentary style because one of the main characters is a podcaster, and honestly, this book had me effed up. Like, I had no idea. It was so thrilling to follow. I loved it. 4 stars. Carrie Soto is back. 5 stars. One of my favorite reads of the year. If you want to hear me talk more about it, you can go watch my top 24 of 2024. The most badass woman to ever do tennis outside of Challengers, whatever her name was in that movie. Loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Taylor Jenkins Reid is a genius, and I'm here for it. Then I got into Magnolia Parks, and boy, did I not know what I was signing up for. These books right here, crazy. You're following this toxic couple and their friend group in elite society London. They're crazy. What they do to each other is crazy, but it's just a fun drama-filled time, and I ate it up. I read Daisy Hates, which is the other perspectives you get. Similar timelines, but this is different characters' perspectives. I like the Daisy Hates books more. The sister of basically an art criminal and, you know, her love story, which I enjoy a lot. But you just kind of have to dissociate from reality a little bit because it's so dissociated from reality, these books, but it's entertaining. It's like Gossip Girl in London. Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. I fell more in love with these characters in this book. We get a lot more of their history and you just follow them and kind of learn more about why they are the way that they are, and a lot of aha moments happened in this book. Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing, 5 stars. My favorite in the series. I love this couple. I love these characters. They are my everything now. Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home. Didn't think I could cry within the first 10 pages of a book, but this one will do it for me. Holy shiz. Also, such a cute ending and happy ending for a story, but also crazy. If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. What? That was actually insane. I cried so hard during this book. This book was so intense and I loved it for that. 5 stars. Ali Hazelwood's first attempt at fantasy, and this was a paranormal romance, and I had so much fun. My first were-vampire romance fantasy book I've ever read, and I loved it. Very political, very spicy at the end. Yeah, bro's an animal, literally a canine. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. A super fun mystery following a girl in her town who is trying to uncover the mystery of a disappearance that happened a few years ago for her senior project. I enjoyed it. I don't really remember much else about this book besides that I enjoyed it. 3.5 stars. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Also one of my favorite books of the year. Also, I don't know if I said this. In that video, I only included books that I read for the first time. That's why Throne of Glass wasn't in there. Otherwise it would have been. But The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. My first and so far only V.E. Schwab book, and I loved it so much. I ate it up. I loved her writing. Everything about it was perfect. You're following a girl in France in the 16 or 1700s, and she makes a deal to become immortal, but that deal has consequences, which you will find out about if you read this book, and sacrifices, which you will find out about if you make it to the end. I love it so much. After The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I read How to Do the Work, which is a fiction novel by Dr. Nicole Lapierre. She's like the holistic psychologist on social media. I remember learning a lot when I was reading it, and now I can't tell you at all what I learned. The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez, and this was a short story that they did with Amazon and Kindle Unlimited, so there was a bunch of popular romance authors that did this. I read Abby Jimenez and I really enjoyed it. I don't remember what it was about. It was like a really short novella, but I gave it 3 stars. Good if you're in a slump or just want a quick read. I then read another one by Christina Lauren, which was The Exception to the Rule, and I haven't read like a full Christina Lauren book at this point, but I enjoyed this, and I think the authors did an incredible job of making me root for the characters in such a short amount of time. Love their work, want to read some of their full books. I then read A Man Called Ove, and this book was so cute. It really pulled at my heartstrings. I loved our main character. He really had been through a lot in his life, and he was planning on doing something not very good, but all these side characters come in and you really see he has a heart of gold. I then read Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, and this book just had me so confused. I gave it 2 stars. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I did, but it was just so all over the place. There was like too much going on. Too much. That it made me confused. Abby Jimenez, Just for the Summer. My queen, my girl. I love her so much. I love her books so much. It's a fun time. It's funny, and then it's also deep, and it's gonna pull at your heartstrings. Justin and Emma are our 2 main characters, and I love them so much. Emma has pretty severe issues in terms of commitment, mommy issues, running away, things like that. And Justin is getting custody of his younger siblings and has to deal with that. Kind of crazy, but it's a lot of fun. I love how they meet right off the bat and she just goes from there. Another one of my favorite books of the year. Speaking of my favorite books of the year, Better Than the Movies. Also in my top 24 of 2024. If you want a first high school love, your first crush, that nostalgic feeling with some fun references to rom-coms, like 2000s rom-coms. I love this book so much. It was so much fun. I have to read Nothing Like the Movies, but I've heard it's kind of a disappointment, so not on a rush, but want to read it at some point. Would 100% recommend this book though, 5 stars. After Better Than the Movies, I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and this book is everything I ever want in a cowboy romance. It was so cute. Emmy comes home and sparks things up with her brother's best friend. They live on a ranch, Rebel Blue Ranch in Wyoming. If you want cowboy, if you want ranch, if you want small town romance, this is a great book. Next, I discovered my queen, Elsie Silver, in the first book is Flawless. Rhett is a bull rider and Summer is the daughter of his agent. I love it so much. Elsie Silver's books, as you will see, are like an addictive substance, I swear. Heartless, the second in the Chestnut Spring series, following Cade and Willa. Cade is a single father who needs help. Willa is his nanny, and things go from there. I love Elsie Silver so much. Swift and Saddled, the second in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and another good time. Ada is an interior designer from out of town. Wes is a brother of Emmy, who the first book was about. Again, I ate up so many small town romances this year, and I had no problem with it. Elsie Silver's books are about 400 pages. Lila's are mostly less than 300, so easy to devour. Powerless. This one really got to me. This was probably the most emotional depth within the characters. Jasper is a professional hockey player who is a adopted Eaton brother. Sloane is a ballerina who is related to the Eatons, but not Jasper because adopted, but besides the point. Friends for a long time, ate it up. Reckless. Another bull rider, and the sister of the first book, Winter and Theo. This was a lot of fun too. I love Elsie Silver at this point. I'm obsessed with her. One of my favorite authors. Now we're getting into when I read every single Emily Henry book in 7 days, and I started with Book Lovers. This was a reread for me. I love this book even more the second time. I gave it 5 stars. Emily Henry cannot miss for me. 2 publishers wind up in this small town and things go from there. People We Meet on Vacation, another reread, but the first Emily Henry book I have ever read. I gave it 5 stars when I first read it. I loved it again. 5 stars. I will say now it's probably my least favorite Emily Henry book, but considering I love all of her books, that is still very high praise. You're following 2 friends through multiple years as they take their annual vacation, and you know, something might happen. There might be some feelings going on. Funny story. Emily Henry's new release in 2024. I read this a couple times this year. The first time I read it, I wasn't really sure how I felt. The next times I read it, I was obsessed with it. I love Miles. I love Daphne. Daphne's a child librarian. Miles is a man of many talents. They both end up in this unfortunate situation being roommates together. I love it. I love it. I love it. Daphne's freaking hilarious. 5 stars. Happy Place, Emily Henry's 2023 release. My first time reading it was last year in 2024. I really had so much fun during this book. The friendships, the dynamic between the 2 main characters was very interesting because we came at a time not when the relationship was starting, but when it was ending. Beach read, my holy grail, my 6-star read. Gus and January are my favorite people ever. I will be rereading this very soon. Back to, oh my god. Yep, that's just how it's gonna be. Back to my queen, Elsie Silver, finishing off the Chestnut Spring series with Hopeless. I did a reread of this recently, and I love this book. We are following Bo Eaton, who is one of the brothers, and he was a special ops guy. That has kind of come to a close, and then Bailey is the daughter of this family that doesn't have a very good reputation in the town. Just follow their journeys, and I had a good time. I'm always gonna have a good time in an Elsie Silver book. Sticking again with my queen, we have Wild Love, which she released last year. This was the first book in her Rose Hill series. We're following Ford, a billionaire record producer who is related to Willa in Heartless. Rosie is moving home after leaving her job. They have known each other for a long time because Rosie's brother is Ford's best friend. I then read The 5-Star Weekend by Ellen Hildebrand. This is my second or third Ellen Hildebrand novel, and it was a lot of fun. You are following a famous food blogger who invites 4 different friends to her Nantucket home for a long weekend, and you kind of discover discover all these things about their life, and they all have all these different things going on, and you just follow that. I really enjoyed it. Ellen Hildebrand does beach reads so well, but they're kind of mysteries too, which I enjoy. I then read Off to the Races, which got me into Elsie Silver's first ever book series she wrote, which is Gold Rush Ranch. I really enjoyed this book. It was a lot of fun. It is a ranch owner and then a horse trainer. I then read Bridgerton, The Duke and I for my Bridgerton book versus show video. The show is so good that the book kind of disappointed me, so I don't know if I'll read the rest of the books. Let me know if I should. My mom listened to them all on audio and really liked them, but I don't know. Continuing my Elsie Silver grind, A Photo Finish. This is actually about the sister of the main characters of the Chestnut Spring series, the Eaton family. Her love interest, Cole, who is also an owner of the ranch or facility, farm, horse training place. There is some depth to this book. There were some things that shocked me in this book. I'm always going to eat up an Elsie Silver book. I don't know how many times I need to say it. A Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I had so much fun reading this book. Our main character was so freaking smart. She was stolen away from the human realms when she was young, taken by this Fae general and put into this school. Super cool. Want to read the rest of the series, just have yet to get to it. I loved her writing. I loved her world. I'm excited to read the rest of the series. I then read Powerless, which I was really anticipating because I feel like so many people talk highly about, but it kind of disappointed me. I think I gave it 3 stars, which is generous. The romance just was like a revolving door. The trials were interesting. I don't think it's worth the hype, you guys. Are we surprised? No. I love her. I love her books. I love every single book she creates. I love how every single book is different from the other books. All the characters are unique and have their own things going on, but also have such a unique way that they come together and relationship that forms, and I love it. I'm gonna read every single one of her books. I then read A False Start, which is the last book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, and love that one too. My first Olive E. Blake book, which was The Atlas Six, I fell in love with her writing. I thought it was so unique. It was so fun. It did take me a while to get into, but I still thoroughly enjoy it. You are following like 6 different characters' perspective as they are selected to be in this secret society. There's magic, there is kind of classroom elements and different alliances and intentions that you're not really sure what the characters are thinking or what their next move will be. Servant in the Wings of Night. I want to read the rest of this series, but I remember some of what happened in this book, but not most of it, so I need to do a reread or just watch a recap before I get into the rest of it. A human girl gets stolen away by a vampire king, and there are different factions of vampires in this world. There's this trial that this human girl's captor slash father now has been training her for, and she wants to get this wish that the winner of the competition is granted. Binding 13, Johnny Kavanagh is a rugby player. Shannon is a troubled girl who Johnny takes under his wing to protect. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm actually rereading these books right now. I'm so connected. I'm so enthralled. I can't stop reading. This is set in Ireland. There's some pretty disturbing things that happen to our characters, so check trigger warnings if you want to read it, but I loved it. It's kind of brash. It's kind of untraditional, but it's so easy to want to keep reading these books. I then read Keeping 13, which is actually the one I'm reading right now. My heart is breaking. My heart is broken for these characters. This was also one of my top 24 of 2024. The Friend Zone. Probably my least favorite Abby Jimenez. I think this is the first book she published, but I still love her writing. It's still cute. It's still fun. The characters have a little bit of depth, but the female main character really pissed me off in this book, but I'm still gonna read it because I love Abby Jimenez. Full 180 here. The second book in the Friend Zone series is the Happily Ever After playlist, and I love this book so much. Top 24 of 2024. Gave it 5 stars. If you want to hear me rave about it more, you can watch that video. Butcher and Blackbird. Maybe the most interesting book I read this year in terms that it's about 2 serial killers. I don't know what else to say. It was good, but crazy. Very, very unique. And I would recommend it. Life's Too Short, which is the 3rd book in the Friend Zone series by Abby Jimenez, and I really love this book too. It's set in Minnesota. Some things are going on with the main characters that is not very good. It was also interesting because one of the main characters was a YouTuber, the other was a lawyer. I don't think I'd ever read a book about a social media personality, so that was interesting. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. It was hard to connect with this book because the female main character was very cold. Also, this is erotica. Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. I love this book so much. The romance, the witchiness, the playing off of each other, the using each other, the ending, the Regency era-ness of it, fabulous. In Ember in the Ashes, such a good start to an incredible fantasy series. Leia is a slave, Elias is a part of this military school, and this is just the start of their journey to fight evil crazy. Who's good and who's not? I don't know. Summer romance, another one of my queens, Annabelle Monaghan, comes at it strong in 2024. Yeah, this book was one of my favorites of the year. I love it, love it, love it with my whole heart. I think about this book all the time. A single mom is going through a divorce and kind of loss of someone very important in her life, and she meets someone who turns out to be from her past by her dog peeing on him. It's so cute. I love the relationship. I love their love. I love how everything comes together. Love Unwritten by Lauren Asher. When I read this, I weirdly kind of ate it up, but I don't think her books are for me, and that's okay. I then got into the Windy City series, starting off with Mile High, which is probably my least in the series, but got me into it, so I'm still happy I read it. Mile High is about a flight attendant for a professional hockey team in Chicago, and the mailman character is the captain of the hockey team, and he has a bad image and she does not want anything to do with that. Next is The Right Move, the second book in the Windy City series, and this is about Stevie's brother from the first book, who is a professional basketball player in Chicago, and Indy, Stevie's best friend. Caught Up is about a professional baseball player in Chicago and the coach's / manager's daughter. He's also a single dad. Ate it up. Play along. I loved this book, the fourth book in the Windy City series, and my favorite out of all of them. Isaiah and Kennedy, I don't know how many times I can say it, are my safe space, are my happy place. I love them so much. I would die for them. That's a little far, but they own my heart and they speak to my soul. The Last Lecture by the late Dr. Randy Pausch, and this is just kind of a story of his life and lessons he learned. You can also watch The Last Lecture on YouTube. I enjoyed reading the book and it made me cry multiple times. Daisy Jones and the Six, another one of my top reads of the year. We are following a 60s rock band and everything that comes along with that, which I'm sure you can imagine is a lot. I then read Wildfire by Hannah Grace, which is the second book after Icebreaker. Two of the characters go to a summer camp to be camp counselors, I think. Yeah, I don't really remember much about them, but it was cute. I had fun. I think I gave it 3 stars. I then watched the movie It Ends With Us and needed to immediately read It Starts With Us. That was a reread. I really enjoyed the reread and I enjoyed these characters. The movie was fine. They changed a lot of things I wish they would have kept the same, but oh well. I then read The Graham Effect and The Dixon Rule by Elle Kennedy. Both of these are college hockey romances, and I don't really have much else to say about that or remember them very much. They were kind of long. It was interesting. I think these were kind of my first college sports romance, so it was interesting to be in like a college setting again, because it's been a few years since I've been in college, and being in that scene, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what it's like. Don't miss it, but happy I had that experience because it was a lot of fun when I was there. A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, and I love Ashley Poston. This was no different. I gave it 4.5 stars. Again, one of my favorite books of the year. Winds up in the small town that her favorite romance series is set in. How freaking fun is that, you guys? Like, how freaking fun. She can't place this bookseller and a romance blooms kind of out of nowhere, but it was still a lot of fun. Also, there was some interesting mysteries going on, which I enjoyed. I then read probably my least favorite book of the year, Reckless. I gave it 2 stars, but maybe it got 1. It was basically them just doing the same thing over and over again. The relationship went nowhere. I feel like we barely got any hints of the fantasy world, maybe here and there, but it was basically like watching never ending. I did not enjoy it except for the last page. That was crazy, which will probably make me read the next book, unfortunately. It got me. It really did. Still didn't really love it though. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I really enjoyed this book when I was reading it. It was so atmospheric. We were set in Prince Edward Island. It is a best friend's brother and things have been going on for multiple years. There's a lot of oyster shucking, which is fun, and there was a weird mystery with the best friend, and I like when there are different subplots woven throughout, especially like with the best friend and that mystery, and then the romance was cute. So I think this book solidified Carly Fortune as potentially an auto-buy author for me. I then read a book called Crossroads by Devney Perry on my Kindle and really enjoyed it. First Devney Perry book, small town, ranch / resort, a guest who has been coming there basically her whole childhood, takes over the ranch. It was a lot of fun, very cute. I can't believe how many small town romances I read this year. Like, it's kind of crazy. I think I have a problem. The Woman by Kristen Hanna, my first Kristen Hanna novel. It did take me a while to get through, but I think this story is so important. It really opened my eyes and made me think about all these different experiences people have had in the past and how horrible war can be, not only for the men who were fighting in it, but also the women whose stories aren't told. And that's why I appreciate Kristen Hanna so much for telling these stories. I read another small town romance, surprise, surprise, Strung Along by Hannah Cohen. I don't think this is a very known author, but I thought it was cute. I just wanted like a no brain power read, and that's what this was. I also read All in Her Head, another nonfiction book by Dr. Elizabeth Coleman. It kind of takes you through the history of women in medicine, not on the physician side, but more so on the patient side, and it takes you through every kind of body system and how in the past they've been treated based on that, and it was kind of disturbing. It brought up a lot of things, problems. I wish it would have brought up more solutions to how we can be better today. I will say it did bring up like kind of how we are today, which is definitely better from how it was in the past, but again, wanted more solutions. All Good People Here by Ashley Flowers, my first Ashley Flowers novel. I don't know if this is her first novel. I listened to Crime Junkie a lot in college. This one didn't hit for me. It did not hit. I didn't enjoy it. This journalist comes to a small town trying to solve the murder of her friend. I will say second to last chapter I was like, whoa. But other than that, I just felt like I was slogging through it. Maybe I was in a slump, but it just wasn't for me at the time. I then read Red Rising. I'm obsessed with this book. Thoroughly loved it. Darrow is in the lowest caste in the society, and he undergoes this, you know, reverse princess protection program transformation to become the highest caste and infiltrate their ranks. There's a lot of war, there's a lot of strategy, and our main character is incredibly smart, and he impressed me a lot. Assistant to the Villain. Maybe the most surprising and fun book I read this year. Evie, the most adorable, lovable main character, becomes this assistant to a villain. One of my favorite books in the year. You see all these different characters and their dynamics, and it's just hilarious how they play off of each other. I had so much fun. And it's like The Office, but with magical creatures and kingdoms and a talking frog who holds up signs that have one-word sayings. Between Friends and Lovers, I felt like this was the most realistic romance book I read this month. It was a love triangle, but it wasn't so in your face, so I didn't hate it. I actually really enjoyed it. I felt like the characters were very mature in how they handled a relationship, and like I said, it felt like one of the most realistic relationships I read in a romance this year. I then read Caraval, which was super fun and whimsical and magical. I love the way Stephanie Garber writes. It really felt mystical, and I don't know what the word that I'm trying to think of, so I'm just not gonna say any more about it. I would recommend it though. Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. Read it. Again, I'm gonna read every single book Elsie Silver publishes. I love this book. I gave it 4 stars. The opening scene with the grizzly bear, so funny. The kids in this book too also really stood out to me, and I love them. A Torch Against the Night, the second book in the Ember and the Ashes series, and oh boy, are we in for a treat. This book is crazy, and the world is so much bigger than we thought, and we get another character's perspective in this book, and the ending of this book. Sunlight by Devney Perry, the second book after Crossroads, and don't really remember what happened, but I thought it was really cute, and another small town romance that I ate up. Apprentice to the Villain, disappointing compared to Assistant to the Villain, just because I loved that book and I think I was surprised, and this book, the romance, kind of reminded me of Reckless a little bit. Not the Elsie Silver Reckless, the Lauren Roberts Reckless, and I didn't like it, but I still like it more than Reckless. 3.5 stars. It's too much circles going around. Just give it more like an up and down, you know, but they're still going up, you know, but not a circle. The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. She does it again. She doesn't miss with the magical realism. It's a lot of fun. Our main character sees ghosts, and her family owns a funeral home, and she ends up seeing this ghost who she attaches herself to romantically. Another Olive E. Blake, One for My Enemy, 2 rival witch clans, a Romeo and Juliet retelling, one of my top reads of the year. The Housemaid, my first Frida McFadden novel, and boy did this suck me in. I had a lot of fun. The twists and turns were so twisty and turny, and you know, these characters are messed up, but I still enjoyed it. Cash, another small town cowboy-ish romance novel. I read on my Kindle Unlimited. The female main character is a city girl, but her dad owns this ranch, and Cash is the foreman, and her dad passes away and leaves the ranch to her. I then read Phantasma, which is Caraval in a darker form, but very different. The concept of Caraval and Phantasma is the same, but the execution of everything is different. There's a competition, you win a prize. I feel like there's a lot like that, and it's just different. I don't know. Top reads of the year. The twist at the end, crazy. The hauntings, ooh. Probably the spookiest book I've read, and I think I did okay. So the door might be open to horror movies, or horror movies? Horror novels for me. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, another one of my favorite books of the year. I love Emily Wilde. Yeah, all the characters are so quirky and fun, and the world is a little bit darker than we thought. It is basically her journal while she is on this field mission to study the last species of fairies for her encyclopedia, and I love them so much. I enjoyed it a lot. Lost and Lassoed, the third book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage, and the most disappointing read for me. Real Americans by Rachel Khong. I love this book. You are following 3 different family members across generations and how they got to be in America and the circumstances that put them where they are. Some science fiction elements. What would you do if you had more time? What would you do if you had more money? Does money really matter after certain points? Can money really buy you the things that matter? One of my favorite reads of the year. I then did a reread of Play Along and loved it so much, even the second time. Next is, spoiler alert, my favorite read of the year, The Nightingale. Please read this book. It is so important. It is so amazing and incredible how Kristen Hanna can share these stories of these women in the way that she does, with the class that she does, with the grace that she does, with the emotional depth and maturity. The execution is just fabulous. The story is important and needs to be shared. 2 sisters in Nazi-occupied France fight back in their own ways. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwang, who is doing the screenplay, I believe, for Beach Read. I love Beach Read. But I also loved How to End a Love Story. It was a lot of fun for a debut romance. We are following a novelist who gets brought out in LA to be in the writing room, and she ends up running into someone from her past. Holiday romance, my favorite holiday romance book I read, and my first ever holiday romance book I read, Holiday Romance. How many times can I say holiday romance in a sentence? I really enjoyed Holiday Romance because it was the first holiday romance I read, and it was just the most holiday romance book that I read out of all the holiday romances I read this year. I loved it so much. We're following 2 different characters who are living in Chicago and their home is in Ireland. They're friends. They've known each other for a decade, and this year they're having troubles getting home. So they're bopping all over the place to try to get home in time for Christmas. The female main character is a Grinch, and the male main character is just Christmas spirit galore, basically Santa Claus. I then read In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, my first bigger Christina Lauren book, but it was a holiday romance, so again, I want to read one of their normal romances. Y'all, I ate this book up. It was so fun. This main character is stuck in a time loop and living the same week over again. I loved it. A Reaper at the Gates, the 3rd book in An Ember in the Ashes, and definitely the most action-packed and my favorite of the books. Wow, yeah. Crazy. Love Light Farms, another cute little holiday romance that wasn't so in-your-face holiday, kind of just throughout the season of fall and Thanksgiving, Halloween, winter. Our female main character owns a Christmas tree farm and is in financial trouble, so she has to fake date her best friend. This is probably tied with Lauren Roberts' Reckless for my least favorite read of the year. This is one of the only books I DNF'd this year and just pissed me off. These characters were mean and annoying, and I really just did not want to read it. So I stopped reading it halfway through. Nora Goes Off Script. I love Annabelle Monaghan, and I love this book too. A single mom is a film writer. She normally does Hallmark type movies, but she ends up telling the story of her separation and earns a big budget film and ends up falling for the actor who comes to her house to play her ex-husband. Same time next summer. I didn't think I'd like this book because it was about a female main character who was engaged but still had feelings for her neighbor, but that didn't really bother me in this book for some reason, and I think it's because Annabelle Monaghan knows what she's doing. Leather and Lark, the 2nd book after Butcher and Blackbird, again unalivers who are in interesting position. Another interesting read. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I still enjoyed it. A Sky Beyond the Storm, the finale to An Ember in the Ashes, and overall a really good time. This was a really good conclusion to that series, and I'm really happy I read this series this year and completed it. happy about that too. All right, I then did a reread of A Court of Thorns and Roses, and being in this world is so much fun. I eat it up. My video will be coming out soon of me rereading all of the books, so keep an eye out for that. And the last book of the year that I completed was A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in A Court of Thorns and Roses, and this book is so freaking good. You think A Court of Thorns and Roses is so good, and then you read this book and you're like, I didn't even know what good was. All right, my camera's gonna die. My battery is flashing. The sun is going down, so that means it's time to wrap this bad boy up and say thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting me this last year. I can't believe I read this many books in a year. That's actually insane. Will I ever read this many books in a year? Who freaking knows? As always, if you enjoyed this video, if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments. If you have any books you think I should read in 2025, let me know those too. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!